I'm kicking off another month-long podcast series. This time we're going to talk about the nervous system. I've mentioned before how the nervous system drives the bus when it comes to our relationships. And we're going to cover a lot of different topics this month about the nervous system, where all of this is coming from, what it means in terms of different attachment styles, and what you can do to help regulate your nervous system in your relationship. Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com. The body remembers things, and it stores it in your nervous system. And your nervous system taught you what love is. What do I mean by that? If you found yourself in moments with your partner and you react in a much bigger way than what the moment probably seemed to deserve, maybe it was a comment, maybe it was a look, an eye roll, maybe it's just an action, or maybe it was an inaction, something you expected to happen, it didn't, but you feel it. You feel it in your chest or your gut, back of your head. And if you've wondered why these things trigger you so hard, our nervous system is just trying to keep us safe. And we have childhood experiences that live inside of our nervous system. They're stored in there. And those early experiences shape our adult relationships. It's not at the conscious level. It's subconscious. It's somatic. It's through sensation, through reactions. It's survival. It's not through logic, memories, but it's through feeling. Because your body started this pattern of keeping notes before you even know what notes are, before you know what words are, before you learn to walk and talk. I mean, as kids, we don't understand attachment styles. We don't understand psychology. We're not trying to emotionally regulate. We just feel. We learn through those feelings. We learn through the body. Before we ever had language, our nervous system is keeping track of everything. And it learned what felt safe and unsafe, what felt unpredictable, what felt loving, what felt threatening. It learned what you had to do to stay connected, to not feel like you were being abandoned. There's a lot of great research out there on trauma, and I'm going to use the word trauma as a generality in this podcast. Some trauma that the body keeps feelings of are pretty large, the large T traumas. We're talking physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. There's a wealth of trauma research out there. I'm also going to be talking about small traumas, things like a parent who was hot and cold. Sometimes they were distant, sometimes they were loving. Sometimes a parent might be in a good mood or sometimes be in a very angry mood. You have big events like abuse, neglect, abandonment, and then you have these small, repeated experiences, the emotional distance, inconsistency, moodiness, anger, frustration. Intermittent reinforcement is I've talked about that in the last few podcasts. Sometimes love was there, sometimes they were withdrawn. Your nervous system responds to these traumas, I'm going to use that word again generally in this podcast, by trying to keep you safe. And it showed you how you read the room to stay safe. And it stores all of these as patterns. And they're stored in a part of your brain that feels them. These patterns are felt. They're not necessarily conscious cognitive thoughts, although you can cognitively think of these things, but these are stored as feelings in your body. Your nervous system, it has one job, survival. Your nervous system does not try to keep you happy. Your nervous system does not try to keep you connected. Your nervous system just says, keep me safe. What is going to keep me safe? Based on past experiences, what should I prepare for next? If love was inconsistent, your body's going to learn to stay alert. If connection could just disappear without warning, hot, cold, your body learned to chase. And if your emotions were punished, if you were too much, quote unquote, too much, your body learned to shut down. And then if affection was unpredictable. Your body learns how to tolerate anxiety as normal. You operate now in a normal state, a baseline state of anxious. That's why a lot of adults in their relationships, in other relationships too, not just romantic relationships, it could be work relationships, it could be family, but primarily I'm talking about romantic relationships. That's why we feel anxious, even if things are going well at that moment, because your body recognizes the patterns. We may be okay now, but something will happen, because something is happening. It's a familiar pattern. Your body, it's stored in your body recognizes it. And we choose partners based on our nervous system. We choose partners based on familiarity. We don't know that. We don't realize that. And I've talked about this with attachment styles. We choose a partner who, if our upbringing was not stable, we choose a partner that appears stable, that appears independent, that appears strong. And again, I've talked about that with the infatuation stage. Those are all, let's say in the case of a dismissive avoidant spouse, those are all traits of a dismissive, but we see them through rose-colored glasses as independence, confidence. But what we really don't realize is we chose a partner who is exactly the same as the partner that we, as a child, were trying to get attention from. We're trying to get warmth. Our nervous system's drawn to what it knows how to survive in. It knows it can survive in this situation because it has done that before. If you're in a place where you're over-functioning emotionally, you're working for that affection and attention, and you're waiting for that warmth like table scraps that sometimes is there, a lot of times is not there, this feels strangely familiar. You fought for those things when you were younger, subconsciously, and now here you are in the same situation with someone who triggers the same sensations in your body. And again, you don't consciously do this. You don't think to yourself, I think I'm going to self-sabotage myself by finding somebody exactly like my angry father. No. Your body says, I know this. I know how to function here. I know what this feels like. This is familiar. I know how to operate within this. It doesn't make logical sense. That's why it's so frustrating. That's why you can read books and listen to podcasts and learn to communicate better and be more intentional and understand intellectually your patterns, and still you feel emotionally hijacked in a moment when you're triggered. The nervous system is not responding to logic or insight. It responds to sensation. It responds to that same feeling that it had when you were younger. When your partner withdraws or they criticize or they pull affection away, they go quiet. Your body reacts. Before your brain even consciously realizes it, it's the part of your brain that's just instant. And then you're flooded. Your chest is tightened, or your stomach turns into a knot, or you feel flush, feel hot, shut down. That reaction's not really about your partner. It's about what your nervous system learned long ago. And I've talked about that before, but it's your body keeping score. There's a great book. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. It's like a 15-hour audiobook, but it's a very heady book. It's very hard to plug through, but it talks about how the body remembers the traumas. Big traumas, little traumas. And it talks about how your body remembers how that love was never obtained, how the safety was never achieved. Your body keeps the score. Your body learns how to adapt, and it remembers that. And then when a similar emotional posture shows up in adulthood, your nervous system doesn't think, I'm 50 years old right now. It thinks, I've been here before, and then it prepares you accordingly. And depending on what those traumas are and what that upbringing is, that's where you start to swing one way or another. Some people will feel everything. They will become hyper-aware, always scanning, hypervigilant and anxious. Others will feel numb, disconnected, distant, shut down. Does that sound familiar? Hyper-aware, Anxious, scanning, vigilant. There's your anxious, preoccupied attachment style. Disconnected, shut down, distant, numb. There's your dismissive, avoidant attachment style. Both of these are nervous system strategies. They're both adaptations. In one, you learn that if I stay alert, I can prevent abandonment. The other one says if I disconnect and distance, I won't be overwhelmed. And I'm not saying either of these is right or wrong, but they were both formed in those early relationships. And just a side note, I've been catching a lot of flack because I did the whole series on the dismissive avoidant that I am picking on. That's my own phrase, picking on the dismissive. We should show empathy towards the dismissive avoidant. It's just that in many situations with most of the guys that I work with, that's the scenario that they operate in, and it's incredibly frustrating because, especially if you're an anxious, preoccupied attachment husband, or you're fearful avoidant who maybe kind of leans towards that anxious side, what's going to happen is you're going to feel like you're trying and doing all the work, and the other partner, if they're not doing anything. And so that's incredibly frustrating. So if it seems like I'm picking on them, I'm trying to be empathetic because they have their own traumas that they have experienced. That's how they became dismissive avoidant. Just like I said, you're either going to feel too much or you're going to feel nothing when you are overwhelmed, when your nervous system is overwhelmed. So I just want to throw that side note in there. But the idea here is your nervous system is conditioned through consistency. How inconsistent was the love? Was it there sometimes and distant other times? Did you have warmth sometimes and then anger? That unpredictability, it wires your body. It wires the brain. It wires it into rumination and obsession and overthinking and emotional chasing. Remember, the nervous system's always trying to restore safety. It's not trying to fix a marriage. It's not trying to fix a parent-child relationship. It's just trying to stay safe, fight or flight. And that inconsistency, that intermittent reinforcement, brings hope and then threat. Hope, threat. And it's a loop. And you never really close the door on your childhood. You may not have gotten closure of that loop. And so your nervous system continues to stay in that mode. That's why the triggers are so powerful. You're not reacting to your wife, you're reacting to your childhood through the body. You're not reacting to now, you're reacting to then. The present moment just triggers an unresolved pattern that was never completed. And that's why that intensity that you feel is disproportionate to maybe the trigger itself. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, if we're talking about big traumas, we're talking about big triggers. But I'm talking about the little things that we often see in our relationship because of the hypervigilance. When your wife sleeps with her back to you, or when you had a couple of hours by yourself, no kids, and she gets on her phone the whole time instead of giving you any affection. Those are little traumas, but they feel huge. That's the disproportionate feeling, the intensity, because your nervous system is being triggered by unfinished business. A lot of guys are trying to prevent the triggers. You are never going to stop being triggered. But the goal here is to understand what your body learned and why it reacts the way it does, how to regulate that, and how to stop shaming yourself for those survival responses. That's hard too, especially if you are shamed by others. You learn to stop fighting your nervous system. And those strong reactions are probably because of the patterns. You adapted really early and you survived. That was survival. You made it through. You learned things at a very deep subconscious level. The thing about nervous system patterns, nobody teaches you how to change those. You don't realize all of this until you get into adulthood and start putting in the work. But when I talk about the secure husband process, the first step is always awareness, and being aware of your nervous system. The recognition is the first step to safety, to be able to understand that this didn't just come from nowhere, that all of a sudden I've become, in my marriage, this insecure husband. No, this makes sense. My body, there's a history there. Yeah, I want to fix things, but your body subconsciously has kept track of everything. And when you can begin to see your reactions through this lens, shame is reduced. You start to replace self-attack with just be curious. And that's where this inner child work is very helpful, where you talk to that little boy inside about those traumas. Give him love. Connect to divine guidance to show him what unconditional love looks like for yourself and inherent self-worth. And when you can do that, shame loses that grip. And now, probably for the first time in your entire life, your nervous system starts to feel seen and loved, not shamed and judged. And this month-long series on the nervous system, I want to cover a lot of different areas to help reduce the shame so that you can understand how all of this takes place in your body before you can even process it, and what you can do to learn how to work side by side with your nervous system so that you don't feel like you're overreacting or failing at your relationship. Your body just learned how to survive love before you ever even learned how to understand what love is. But once you see that, you can start working with that. And that's what we're going to do this month. I hope you enjoy this month-long series on the nervous system. I know sometimes it's a little woo-woo, but our nervous system is driving this. Our nervous system, that inner child inside, is driving the bus with this relationship. And when we can start to understand that more and work with it more, that's where you start to bring peace internally. Peace that you can feel, not peace that you're trying to logically rationalize. If this podcast helped you and you're not a regular listener, subscribe. I encourage you to do that. Share this podcast with someone who you think may need to hear this. And if you need accountability, if you need somebody to help you in this journey, go to securehusband.com, fill out that form. Let's have a free 30-minute consultation just to see if one-on-one coaching might be beneficial for you. I'll see you on the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.